Hello everyone. So today we'll start our discussion about the third natural resource, and that third natural resource is the land or the lithosphere. In earlier lectures we have already discussed about atmosphere and hydrosphere, and now it's the turn of lithosphere or the soil. So the land area of the earth is known as lithosphere, and the uppermost layer of this lithosphere is called what? It is known as crust. So uppermost layer of earth's surface is called crust. Clear? And what is the soil? It is the topmost layer of the earth crust, which is loosely packed, which is made up of loosely packed particle. And what is the importance of soil? Because soil is the nearest resource of minerals and nutrients to plants and in turn to living organisms. You know, plants get all the water and nutrients and minerals from the soil, and through plants all these matter is being transferred to animals as well as to human beings. So when soil is so important, then we have a separate branch for the study of soil, and the branch of science which deals with the study of soil is known as pedology. Clear? So that is the branch of science that deals with the study of soil is known as pedology. And if you look at the composition of the soil, the main components of the soil are, of course, the mineral matter, which is 45%. Then another one is organic matter, which is 5%, and then air, that is 25%, and then water, which is also 25%. So that is the basic composition of the soil. And if you look at the importance of soil, so soil performs some very important functions. For example, first of all, it provides anchorage to the plants. That means it holds the plants to stay straight, and it provides a natural habitat to number of microorganisms and worms. And you know very well that how important are these microorganisms and worms, because these microorganisms and worms, they act as natural decomposer. They break down the complex materials into the simpler one, help in replenishing the fertility of the soil. Then another important function of the soil is it provides the nutrients to plants, and of course from plants it comes to animals, and it provides air to plants for respiration, and it provides water to plants for photosynthesis. Right? So you can say all these factors, they you will say that what is the importance of soil for us, because whatever importance you are observing here are directly benefiting to the plants. Of course it is directly benefiting to the plants, but we cannot expect the existence of life on earth without plants, because green plants is the only factor which converts the solar energy to usable chemical energy in the form of food by the process of photosynthesis that we use, right. So, if the soil is benefiting to the plants, indirectly it is also benefiting to the animals as well as human beings. And now the question is, how is the soil formed? So, soil is basically formed by grinding and crushing down of big rock pieces into the fine particles. That is the basic process of soil formation. But what are the factors that are responsible for crushing and grinding of rocks and stones? So, if you think of these factors, the first most important factor here is sun. Sun, which causes heating up of the rocks. So, what happens when the rocks heated up? They expand during the daytime, and during night they start cooling down. But as the rocks are bad conductor of heat, then what happens? The inner parts of the rocks, they get cooled down quickly, but the outer parts, they don't cool down. So, the outer parts, they cool down quickly, and the inner parts, they don't cool down, because of which the outer parts contract whereas the inner parts remain expanded, and this leads to development of cracks in the rocks. And during that rock formation, a withering effect takes place and the rock is broken down into fine particles, resulting in soil formation. So, this uneven heating and cooling of rocks due to presence of sun's heat is a major factor responsible for soil formation. Another factor that helps in soil formation is water. So, water helps in various ways in soil formation. First of all, when the water falls on the earth's surface in the form of heavy rains, again these heavy rains, they help in breaking or withering the rock into fine particles. Another one is this water, the fast flowing stream of water, it widens the cracks. So, the cracks in the rocks also responsible are widened by the water. When the fast moving stream of water hits to the rock, it enters to the cracks already developed because of sun, and this is how the cracks are widened, and this widening, during this widening also, the rock is broken down into fine particles, resulting in soil formation. And of course, another factor which is helpful in soil formation by water is friction. So, when a fast moving stream of water, it carries the small particles of soil, rocks with it, then these rock particles, rock pieces, they collide with each other, and because of this collision, this friction, these big pieces of rocks are broken down into fine particles, resulting in soil formation. So, you have seen whatever is the way, whether rains or widening of cracks or because of friction, the fine particles that are formed at one place are carried away to another place by means of water. And the nature of the soil and the nature of nutrient present in the soil, it depends on what? It depends on the composition of the parent rock. If parent rock is rich in calcium, the soil of that place will also be rich in calcium, and so on. Another factor which is responsible for soil formation is winds. Winds act approximately in the same way as water does. The fast moving streams of wind, again they enter into the cracks, helping in the cracks to becoming wider, and they erode the rocks. They hit the rocks, they erode the rocks, breaking down into fine pieces. And like a stream of water, strong winds also carry away some small pieces of rocks, and these rock pieces, they collide with each other, resulting in formation of a powdery material, that is the soil. Like water, winds are also responsible for carrying the soil from one place to another. And the another factor which is responsible in soil formation is the biological factors. If we talk about biological factors, the most common biological factor is microorganisms. There are a number of microorganisms that secrete various kinds of chemicals, and these chemicals, they help in withering and eroding of the rocks, resulting in soil formation. Like microorganisms, lichens. As you know, lichens are the symbiotic relationship between fungi and blue-green algae, and when these lichens, they grow over rocks, they secrete some acidic substances, and these acidic substances slowly corrode the rocks, erode the rocks, and rocks are broken down into fine particles. And another one is, of course, the roots of plants. The cracks that develop over rocks due to effect of sun, water or winds. In these cracks, initially some plants, they grow, they start growing, and the roots of these growing plants, they cause a drilling effect or a drilling kind of process, because of which the gaps are becoming more and more wider, and when these cracks become wider, the withering of rocks occur, right? So, you have seen there are various factors that are responsible for soil formation in one way or the other, whether it is sun, whether it is water, whether it is winds, or is it the biological processes or the biological factors, right? And now another important thing is about the soil is the type and quality of the soil. You must have heard about the various types of soils at various places. At some places the soil is fine clay soil, somewhere it is sandy soil. So the type of soil, that depends on particle size. So you can say type of soil is decided by the particle size. And how particle size decides the type of soil. Based on that, we can have the clay soil called clay, where the particle size is less than 0.002 millimeter, and another one is silt, where particle size is between 0.002 to 0.02 millimeter. Then you have fine sand, having particle size 0.02 to 0.2 millimeter, and then you have coarse sand, and in this coarse sand the particle size is 0.2 to 2 millimeter, and then we have the largest one, that is gravel, where the particle size is even greater than 2 millimeter. So in this way you have seen that depending upon the particle size, you can have various types of soils. And if you look at the quality of soil, then quality of the soil is decided by the amount of organic matter, quality of soil depends upon the amount of organic matter which is added to the soil by dead and decaying biological organisms. For example, soil plus dead and decaying organisms is known as what? It is known as humus. So humus is the, you can say, topmost fertile layer of the soil, which contains not only the soil but also the dead and decaying organisms, and it decides the fertility of the soil. If a soil is containing good amount of humus, it is going to be highly fertile, and if it is not having a good amount of humus, then it is going to be less fertile, and if there is no humus, then even the soil may be barren. And as you have seen that the various resources, whether water, air, are getting polluted. So soil is also not left by these uncontrolled human activities. The soil is also being polluted by the uncontrolled human activities. So now we come to the soil pollution. So like any pollution, soil pollution is also decided by, explained as a process which leads to addition of harmful substances and removal of useful substances that destroys the soil fertility is caused soil pollution. So any process which leads to addition of harmful substances or which leads to removal of useful substances from the soil that will destroy the fertility of the soil will be known as soil pollution. If you look at the causes of soil pollution, the first major cause of the soil pollution is the excessive use of chemicals in agriculture. As you know, the population is increasing, the requirement of food is increasing, and in order to meet this food requirement, we are using various kinds of chemicals in the form of fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides, etc. And they are responsible for killing the worms and microorganisms in the soil, and of course it is going to adversely affect the fertility of the soil. Then another important cause of soil pollution is addition of industrial and domestic waste. Especially if you talk about domestic waste, excessive use of plastics and polythenes, that is a major factor for responsible for soil pollution. And another factor which leads to soil pollution is deforestation. So how deforestation helps in soil pollution, how it is responsible? Because first of all, you know that when forest is there, when plants are there, then the plants, they shed off their leaves and fruits and flowers or any other plant part which is shed off from the plant. It gets mixed up with the soil and is decomposed by microorganisms and helps in replenishing the fertility of the soil, right? Another way in which this deforestation is responsible for causing the soil pollution is that as you know, the plants are helpful in anchoring the soil. But when plants are not there, soil is not anchored and it is washed away with water or with fast winds. and it leads to another problem, and that another problem here is known as soil erosion. So how we define soil erosion is defined as the loss of topmost fertile layer of the soil by water or winds. That process is known as soil erosion. And if you look at the factors for soil erosion, because soil erosion itself is a very important cause which is resulting to soil pollution. So it itself is a major factor which needs to be immediately controlled. So if you look at the factors responsible for soil erosion, these factors are, first of all, more and more afforestation, means plant more and more trees. Or if you see at the first of all factors that are responsible for causing soil erosion, here is the, again, deforestation. You must be wondering that whatever I was discussing, whether I was discussing about air pollution or water pollution or soil pollution or even soil erosion, in every case there is this point, that is deforestation. So now you can understand how important is to protect our vegetation cover. We must plant more and more trees to keep our environment clean and healthy. So again, deforestation is the major factor. Then another important is overgrazing by cattle. So that is another factor responsible for soil erosion. And the another factor which leads to soil erosion is the heavy rains or strong winds. Both of these factors are also responsible for causing soil pollution. Now you will say that heavy rains or strong winds, these are the factors which are beyond our control. Of course, these factors are beyond our control, but the effects of these factors are under control. If again the same thing is there, if we are having plenty of vegetation cover, if we have plenty of plants, plenty of trees, then all these plants and trees will provide us an anchoring effect to the soil, and in that case the effect of heavy rains or strong winds may be minimized, right? So if you look at the methods of prevention of soil erosion, so the first most important one here is afforestation, that is planting more and more trees, and another one is to check overgrazing, and to use terrace farming in hilly areas. Because in hilly areas the surface is slopy, and when it rains the water does not stay there and it falls down, and while falling down it carries away the topmost layer of the soil, causing soil erosion. So if we are using the process of terrace farming, or there is another way which is also known as channel farming, then we can help in preventing the soil erosion, right? So that is all about our third natural resource, that is lithosphere or the soil. And from next lecture we will start discussing about the various biogeochemical cycles. Have a nice time. Goodbye to all of you.